Have you ever had to work on a project in life that, no matter how hard you tried, it just didn't make any sense? I think I can safely say I've filled up at least 90% of my life's quota for frustrating projects all in one episode. My special little project was attempting to fix my older brother's car. My brother, Quentin, is going to college to become a teacher, and when you're a college kid, you need every nickel you can get your grubby little paws on. Taking the car to a certified mechanic was not an option for Quentin. That left me and my dad to fix his car, and I didn't really mind too much since I like working with cars, and I'm a pretty good mechanic, as long as I have good internet connection and access to Google. Also, I don't have a rail shop with concrete flooring, so I have to improvise. If I have to work underneath the car, I always have to put down a piece of plywood first. If I don't, I'm guaranteed to have a sharp rock dig into my spine every time. So the problem with Quentin's car was when you turn the steering wheel to the right or the left, it would make a kind of sound. Dad decided something was probably wrong with the power steering. We opened the hood of the car, and Dad started looking around at the power steering lines. The first thing I noticed when I looked down the hood was that the battery was gone. Where it should have been, instead, there are two cables poking up that read, battery extension cables. Replacing the battery in a normal car takes about 5 minutes, but I could see replacing the battery in this particular car might take a little longer, about maybe 4 or 5 hours longer. The company that made the car, which shall remain nameless, decided that the best possible location for the battery was literally in the middle of the car, because why doesn't that make sense? This way, if the battery ever runs dead, you have to disassemble 50% of the car just to replace it. The official repair manual says in order to replace the battery, you must begin by removing the passenger side wheel, which makes sense because if you were roughly the size of a pet chipmunk, you could probably just crawl through this wheel well and replace the battery from the side instead of coming down through the top like a normal person. What I think the car engineers missed here was that unfortunately, not everyone's the size of a chipmunk, and not everyone has arms that have more than 5 joints in them, so next you have to remove the air filter, and by now, you should actually be able to see the battery. Once the air filter is removed, you'll notice the car manufacturer kept the health of your battery in mind when they bolted a metal plate over the battery, because you sure wouldn't want that battery rattling around in there. After you remove the steel battery plate, you have to literally dent in the plastic wheel hub because the battery sits partially underneath another steel brace that goes across the entire hood of the car. Someone online legitimately recommended using a baseball bat to accomplish this. Okay, denting in the plastic wheel hub should give you just enough room to wiggle out the battery, but since the car engineers didn't allot enough space to move the battery back and straight out, you have to flip the battery on its side, just to keep it nice and consistent with the overall irritating theme of the car. Some people online said that when this particular car company was designing the car, they completely forgot about the battery until they were about to start production, and they're like, heck, we forgot the battery, and then they just threw it in some random place. However, I'm convinced that when the engineers designed the car, they started with the battery, and then they built the entire car around it. So Dad took a look at the car, and after a while he said power steering fluid was leaking from one of the hoses and it needed to be replaced. If the rest of the car was anything like the battery compartment, I was in for fun. We drove the car into the ramps, and I crawled under the engine to have a look at exactly which cable needed replacing. There were 2 cables side by side that led from the power steering pump, and one of them had a leak. We were 100% sure it was the one on the left because we could clearly see it dripping power steering fluid. Okay, I thought to myself foolishly, it looks like I'll just have to remove these 2 bolts, and presto, the cable should just pop out. Simple problem, simple solution, right? No. At this point, I seriously started to wonder if the entire car was a deformity of some kind. Instead of running the power steering cable straight from the pump to the steering column, like normal people, the car engineers ran the power steering cable through 15 other cables, strapped it to the chassis a couple times, and called her a day. You see, running the cable straight from point A to point B would be far too simple for these engineers. You don't go to university and get a degree in engineering just to run a cable like any punk in grade 12 shop class would. Yep, couldn't have designed it better myself. After me and my dad replaced the power steering cable, The car stopped sounding like someone hacking on a hairball and worked perfectly. Well, until the heater broke and the AC stopped working 1 week later. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.